Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be about how to look after begonias, and I've had a lot of begonias in the past and pretty much all of them have died, so I have definitely worked out what they don't like, but this video is to tell you what they do like and how to grow a really big, luscious, beautiful begonia. And I think as a plant parent, it's really important to experience failure every now and then, because you will research and you will trial and error until you work it out, and then you'll eventually have a really happy plant. So this video is to help you potentially eliminate some of the problems that you are making at home and grow a really nice big begonia like this one over here. So this begonia over here is my Begonia maculata, and it's my longest time owning plant of all the begonias, and it's also really big. So I've owned this one, I want to say, for about a year now, and I hopefully have a photo of when I first purchased it so you can see kind of how established it was. It was a little plant, it definitely wasn't a cutting propagation or anything, so it had a big root system, and I very quickly worked out what it didn't like. So let's talk about those things. So the first thing that I noticed for this plant is it does like to retain a little bit more moisture in the soil, and it doesn't really like as frequent watering, so it needs something that's going to be a little bit more dense than what I would normally use in most of my houseplants at home. So I really like to try and keep things uniform when looking after plants, because when you have so many, it's just so easy to make everything the same. Like, you want all of your plants in an Aroid mix, bright indirect sunlight, and watering once a week, and you just kind of want to stick to that routine. But obviously plants are little individuals and they need different care requirements sometimes, so this one definitely needed something a little bit different to what I was using. So it originally came in its nursery pot in pretty terrible soil. It didn't even really look like soil, it was probably like peat moss or something like that, and it was holding enough water for it, but I was finding that I had to water it every like 2 or 3 weeks, which I just feel like isn't really it's not very kind to houseplants. Like, I think they still enjoy a frequent water. They don't want to be sitting in, you know, a soggy bath for 3 weeks. They want to dry out a little bit. So I ended up changing it to a Aroid mix, and then it didn't really do much. I think it wasn't holding enough moisture, and it was drying out really quickly. Like, I was finding even before the week sort of was up that I was watering all my other houseplants, this one was extremely dry. It wasn't getting a lot of new growth, and I just don't think it was very happy. So I ended up changing it to a Aroid mix with a bunch of potting soil mixed into that to make it just a little bit more dense, and it really likes that. So begonias, I think, thrive really well in a potting mix that is going to allow water to drain through, but it's still going to be like pretty dense and heavy feeling after you water the plant. So that is what I think begonias would like best. They definitely don't want just a straight potting mix, or, you know, potting soil that you get from your local garden centre. They need something that is going to allow proper drainage, and you want drainage holes at the bottom of the pot, so when you water it, it completely goes through. It's feeling pretty heavy, but a lot of water has come out those holes down the bottom, and that will normally get it to about a week and a half, 2 weeks for your next watering. So depending on, I guess, the season, if it's a little bit colder, so you're getting more towards your winter months, then you'll probably be looking at that 2-week mark for watering. And then in the hotter months, or if it's not very humid where you are, you would be watering definitely once a week. I probably wouldn't do much earlier than that, because we still want it to dry out a little bit in between waterings, but we don't want to let it dry out too much. With every single watering for this plant in your sort of growing months, so spring and summer, you want to be adding nutrients to every single watering. I don't think it's very important to add these nutrients in the winter time, because not that they go dormant, but they definitely slow down in their growth. I'm finding that they like to be in a little bit more of a warmer, humid environment, so it does get pretty cold and dry here in Australia where I am, so it's a bit of a waste to add nutrients into every single watering in those colder months. So the lighting requirements for this plant are a little bit all over the place, and what I mean by that is it can do pretty well in low light conditions. I don't think any plant really deals with low light, but this one, it doesn't need, you know, your brightest sunny spot in your house. I think it'll do pretty okay in a spot that's maybe a little bit further away from a window, and the growth might not be as frequent, the leaves may not be as big, but I don't think the plant will suffer immensely from being a little bit further away from a window. They also do really well in really bright, almost direct sunlight, but on some varieties of a begonia, the leaf color can actually change. So I don't know if I have any at the moment that would do that. This is probably the closest one. So more of your Rex type begonias. They've got these really beautiful, kind of glittery, very vibrant colored leaves. So if you're putting this in direct sunlight, the color will change. And one I had in the past was not really similar to this. It was more of those kind of red ones, and its leaf color ended up turning like almost like an aqua color, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think the plant looked like it was really struggling. Like, it obviously was experiencing a little bit of sun stress, but it was still growing quite well. So I think changing it up a little bit and putting your plant in direct sunlight, maybe for a few hours every now and then, and just allowing it to get that really, really bright sunlight, you'll notice a lot of different colors going on your leaves, and it can look really pretty. But in saying that, I think the plant does like to be this little bit more of a deeper sort of vibrant color, so giving it a spot ideally that is bright in direct sunlight is going to work pretty well for all of the begonias. So probably the most tricky thing with owning begonias is working out its humidity requirements, because they are a little bit fussy with humidity, and there's two different varieties that I have, and which I think most of begonias are these kind of two different types. I don't know a lot about begonias, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I see a lot of people say that this maculata type is a cane begonia, and I think it's just because it produces a really sort of long stem, more so like this side, where it just kind of has a stem that grows quite long, and it's essentially just a bunch of long stems within this pot. And this is another type of that same begonia. This one kind of looks like a maculata, but it has pink dots and it looks quite cute. So I actually do this quite frequently, where I will place this little pot inside this big one, and it kind of just looks like I have two different begonias growing together. And I think once this plant gets a little bit bigger, I probably will pot them up together, because I just think they look so cute together in the same pot. Anyway, back to the subject of the varieties of begonias. Then you have these Rex type begonias, which these ones are the fussy ones. So I think if you were starting off with a begonia, you'd want to look into more of that cane type of begonia, because they're just a little bit easier in terms of humidity. It can kind of put up with a lot of things. But this one I haven't owned for very long, and I've lost one leaf on here, but you can see, I'm hoping this will focus nicely. You can see that these leaves are crisping up. I've worked out what it likes now, which it is finally giving me some new growth, but it was a little bit stressed out when I first bought it. So this is what you need to do to combat the sort of humidity issues that they can have. So for those Rex type begonias, I've got another one over here. Here she is. There it is, looks very cute as well. But for these guys that are a little bit more fussy, I am finding that they cannot dry out in between waterings. So I did do a lot of research before I bought another of this type of begonia, because I have owned a Rex type begonia in the past and it didn't live very long because they are a little bit fussy and they will just shrivel up and get dry, and that's the end of it. So once I had watered this really frequently and making sure that it's, I wouldn't say like soggy or like very saturated constantly, but you just don't want to wait until the first sort of, I would say up until about here is dry. You don't want that to happen. You just want it to be like maybe the tiniest little bit dry on the surface. That's probably a really bad way of explaining it, but if anything, overwatering rather than underwatering for this plant. And I don't normally say that with a lot of houseplants, but I just think it's essential. So I did experiment a little bit with these two plants just to see if this actual keeping them more watered in between each watering was the way to go. And you can definitely see in the difference of these leaves that this one is looking very crispy compared to this one over here, and this one on the stem has a lot more leaves growing as well. So I think it is definitely enjoying being watered more frequently, and at the moment, because it is summer here, it is being watered twice a week. Another thing I should add with this begonia is I'm actually keeping it in my bathroom at the moment because I just thought that it gets okay sunlight in there. It's not amazing, could probably be a lot better, but it has that little sort of added humidity to it where every time you have a shower, your bathroom gets a little bit more humid. So I think these plants would definitely appreciate that more so than some of my philodendrons would. So they, I think, are liking it. I've got some new growth on this one, but this one was my experimenting one with drying out a little bit more in between waterings. So for your Rex type begonias, definitely give them a little bit more of love and attention with working out when they need to be watered. The pot size that you use for your begonia is also pretty important. So they do like to be a little bit more root bound because they have some pretty fine roots. So it's very easy for those roots to become pretty sort of waterlogged in a very dense soil, and especially in a pot that's really big as well. So when you are choosing to repot your plant, you really want to make sure that it looks like it doesn't have a lot of room left in it. So you want to see a huge amount of roots and potentially roots coming out the holes at the bottom as well. And pretty much repot when you think that maybe the growth is slowing down or the leaf size is not getting as big as the previous leaf. And that would probably be your best indicator, alongside that and a lot of roots in the pot, that you need to go up a size. So I have only repotted this plant once over here and it did really well after the repot. So after you repot, if it's exploding with growth, then you know you've made the right choice, because that's exactly what this plant did for me. With some of my other begonias, you will see that they are in very tiny pots, and they will probably stay in this for a really long time, because even though this pot is really small, and maybe this is the best example, even though this pot is really small and the growth is looking quite big, if you have a close-up on the pot itself, if you have a look on the pot, you really can't see pretty much any roots in there. And this plant is nearing its watering time, so you should be able to see the roots a little bit easier when the soil's dry. And I don't know about you, but I can't see anything. So this plant will probably stay in this pot for a really long time. These are the other type of begonias that I own also. I cannot remember the names of all of them, so I'll probably have to put them on the screen. But this is another new one that I have, and it's really cute. It looks like little angel wings. And I believe these can get pretty tall as well, but I think the leaf size itself stays pretty small. You're not going to be getting sort of leaves this big. So speaking of big leaves though, I have this begonia and it has gigantic leaves. and apparently they can get even bigger than this. So this is how big one of them are, and it's still quite small, the plant itself. Like, it's still got a very tiny pot, and it's just getting bigger with every single leaf. I've looked up some of them online and they look huge, so I can't wait for it to get that big, because I am sick of having plants on moss poles. Sometimes it's nice to just have a plant that just grows and just is huge and beautiful, and I don't have to put a huge amount of effort into it either. So this is hopefully going to be that plant for me. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it seems that begonias are a little bit less daunting to own. They are so beautiful and so unique looking, and I think everyone should have multiple begonias in their house. So if you did like this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing as well if you would like some more plant content. I do my best to put out videos every fortnight, but I am a uni student, so sometimes they can be a little bit more delayed than that. So if you do want more regular plant content, please check out my Instagram and TikTok, and thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next video.